If there's one verse I want to leave with you guys to encourage you, it's this one from G.K. Chesterton. The one perfectly divine thing, the one glimpse of God's paradise given on earth, is to fight a losing battle and to not lose it. I've seen this time and time again, both at a personal level, on a historical level, but also on a national level. And I pray that you all see that in your own lives one day as well. I'm sorry to hear that. I am the head of Turning Point Australia. My name is Joel Jamal. Some of you have had the great pleasure of talking to this conference, and I do want to thank Jamie for putting this on despite all of the headaches the government have thrown at him. For those of you that may remember, I've tried to put a number of events on in Australia, and the promoters we've worked with have had very, very similar challenges being thrown at us. Venue cancellations, police intimidation, police protection fees, and quite often even with speakers that are very much not even controversial, like Nigel Farage, who in 2022 tried to bring him out. We had to pay police protection fees. We didn't have his visa 2 days out from the event. We literally needed Alan Jones himself to call Anthony Albanese on his private phone to get the visa. Guys, you don't see this stuff. You don't see this stuff. And so I had 5 different people that knew me from Zionist organizations contact me in the lead up to this event and say, Joel, why are you going to this? Why are you going to this? Why are you lending your credibility to this event? And it's very simple. I don't like censorship. I don't like censorship when it comes to vaccines. I don't like people being omitted from their jobs. I don't like people being censored online. If you have winning arguments, then beat it fair and square. Don't censor the person. But we're dealing with cultural communists here. That's what they do. They like to censor people. So when I saw Jamie under these attacks and I was getting these messages from people, it was very simple. I told them to stuff off. I said, I'm coming here, and this is the content of my speech, I'm coming here to talk about how we can get Australia back on track. And if you're telling me to not come and talk about that topic because they have the wrong opinion about a country 14,000 kilometres away, you need to get your priorities straight, all right? I'm about Australia first. My grandfather came here in the late 60s under the White Australia policy. My dad integrated. He studied at the Conservatorium of Music. He worked in the building industry. He's someone that actually contributed to building a lot of churches in this country, as did my grandfather. We've integrated. We're here. We are part of this nation. This is the country I choose to fight for because of that. And the work that I do under Turning Point is my service giving back to this country that has given my family the enormous prosperity that we've had and to reproduce in this country. But if you're going to tell me that I shouldn't do that, if you're going to tell me that I should censor people and I should drop out and I should leave my friends by the wayside, I'm sorry, mate, that's not the Anzac spirit. That's not why these speakers are coming here. That is not why you lovely people have been incredibly patient with this event and the cancellations and all that. They just don't get it, these people. They think they can just attack us and we're all going to scatter. That's not what we're made of. Australia is made of tougher stuff than that, and that's why I love this country. I just wanted to say that before I got into it, because I think that quite often event organisers, they can suffer in silence, but I understood what Jamie was going through, and I just wanted to say that. So who am I? What do I do? I was in the construction industry until the government had other plans. They essentially wanted me to not have my job anymore. They'd instituted lockdowns that ended up robbing me of my job, robbing me of my career. So I decided to take up the opportunity to teach lovely people like you who's punching you, why are they punching you, and how can you punch back politically? How can you breathe your values into politics? Me, I'm a Christian conservative. I've got a bit of a libertarian streak. Long story short, I want government out of my life. I only answer to one man, that's the man in heaven, and I love my country. That's my philosophy. Now, the problem in the West, the problem in Australia especially, is I'm reminded of this verse in the Bible. It's, my people suffer because of their lack of knowledge. God talking about his people. And be under no illusions. If you're a Christian, you are God's people. It's not the Jews. And so when it comes to how we get our country back on track, I see my small role in this, giving people the free tools in order to go and breathe those values into politics. How do we do that? What wins have we gotten in the last 3 years of Turning Point Australia? Well, we fought 9 elections, local, state and federal. We've gotten over 50 different members of parliament elected, councillors elected. We won a referendum. That was awesome in 2023, showing that the country isn't fully gone. 60 to 70% of the nation, 70% in this state of Queensland voted against the voice. That was very encouraging. It showed us, hey, the people are out there, we've just got to reach them. And we are seeing members of parliament get elected time and time again in the Senate, in the state government, and in the local councils as well. But what we really lack in order to take our movement to the next level, and this theme came up a bit yesterday in the conference, is how do we build a cohesive movement that is more unified around certain values? Now, part of that, and my role in that, has been to provide very easy tools to people with where they're at. Let me give you an example. My sister, she's a mother of 3 kids. The kids are all below the age of 5. She doesn't have time to come to protest. She doesn't have time to go out there and actually let a box drop or do all these lovely things that people in the audience do. She doesn't have time to be a fully fledged Spartan warrior out there. She can't hand out how to vote cards at a polling booth, but she can share a post. She texts me and says, Joel, the election's coming up. How should I vote in my area? There are hundreds of thousands of people in the last federal election, 2% actually, 250,000 people, that use the Turning Point Australia how to vote cards. What is a how to vote card? For those of you that don't know online, in Australia, we're the only country in the world that has how to vote cards where you don't just do one for Donald Trump, you number your ballot. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you don't get the first person, it flows to the second. If you don't get the second, it flows to the third. Australia, because we have that situation, because we have that numbering system, it allows organisations like Turning Point Australia to put this free tool out there and say, look, if you're asking me for my advice, my team has sat down, they've looked at your particular area, Parramatta, for example, where I was born and raised, and this is how we recommend voting. We recommend putting conviction parties first. We recommend then putting the coalition, Liberal and National, then Labor, and then the crazy socialists last. That's how we've done it. That's how we've always done it. And when it comes to the last election, we had 2% of voters, which is quite astonishing. It's 1 in 50 people in the country come to Turning Point, go to the website, download a card, and that's what the Electoral Commission data has bared out. We can align that. We know how many people can do that. So a podcaster like Joe Rogan, biggest podcaster in the world, it's not even an argument. He can't even say, in Michigan, this is how many listeners I have, and this is how many people listen to exactly how I said to vote. He can't do that. So we're in a very unique situation. It's not because I'm great or anything. That's not the situation. It's the fact that we have a very unique atmosphere. We have a very unique situation with preferential voting. That's the situation in Australia. This is an advantage we should exploit. This is something that we should do, and that's what I've been doing in the last 9 elections, local, state, and federal. Some people would say, Joel, why local? Why would you even bother? My friends, all politics is local. It's all local. This is local. Groups that meet every week is local. The church meeting every week is local. If you see a person and you can stare into the white of their eyes, have a chat with them once a week, that is power. That is trust. That is authenticity. That is how you can actually understand what they're about and work out, should I give this person my vote for the next 3 years? Do they have my best interests in mind? Can I pick up the phone anytime after the election, after I help them get elected, and will they still pick up the phone? These are important questions. And so I encourage you to focus more at a local level with these things. I had a big punch-up with a lot of parties out there. I'm happy to say this about the Libertarians. Our very first time we did how to vote cards, it was late 2021. It was the first election out of COVID. It was the New South Wales local elections. I had a big punch-up with my good friend, John Ruddick. I said, John, we've got to do local elections. We've got to run in these elections because if you win local, you can win state. If you win state, you can win federal. It's a stepping stone. He said, Joel, the election, it's It's all these problems are happening at a state and federal level. We can't do that. I said, mate, you're really missing something here. I'm pleased to share you this story because they came around of their own volition. In 2024, September last year, they ran dozens of candidates across New South Wales, dozens of candidates across Victoria, and they got nearly, I think it was 25 to 50 different councillors elected. That's progress, my friends. That's what you can do when you set your heart to it. Now, what did I get for that? We start winning. We start winning at a local level. So now, Victoria, and I'm using these two states as examples because we have local and state elections at the same time. It just so happens it's about the same time. Now our next election is state. The next Victorian state election is in November next year. The next New South Wales election is 5 months after that. Those councillors that got elected, they now have more clout, more credibility at the state election to either run themselves or back someone else, which is even better, to lend your credibility to someone that they trust and say, this is my guy, he will take Labor on in Victoria, he will take Labor on in New South Wales, he will get you more of your money back, he will reduce taxes. Do you see how this is a snowball effect? And let's say you get a few of those elected, maybe half what you did councillors. You now have, for the first time ever, minor parties getting people elected at a state level in the lower house. Then by the time you get to 2028, which is only a year after those elections, we got the federal. You got local councillors, you got state members, all trying to get a federal seat, and you get that federal seat. Now, I know you're probably thinking, like, all right, Joel, it all sounds a bit, how you going? I don't know if that's, there's a lot of reasoning, there's a lot of assumptions. My friends, if you want to understand success electorally, you just got to look at the left. That's exactly what the Greens have done round the corner in Brisbane. They had, before the last election, they had taken over the council of Brisbane. At a local level, they'd taken over the state seat and they'd taken over the federal seat. And they had a senator. They had 2 senators. That's how you do it, because all politics is local. If you can do that, you get a snowball effect. And that's what our counterparts in the US are doing. The precinct strategy, that's what they use for the word local. The precinct strategy, that's how they do it. That's how Nigel Farage is doing it in the UK. There's over 500 seats. In every seat, he has a branch. People meeting. It's like their version of Stand in a Park. They meet every month. They coordinate. They think, all right, the next election's in a couple of years. What are we doing? Okay, cool. I'll see you next month, guys. We'll grab pizza or something. Those little snowball effects. They have a bar tab to involve young people. Sometimes you need alcohol to get the young people out. And that is exactly what we are seeing in Australia, except the problem is I'm impatient. Like, I want it now. The lefties have been doing this. The greenies have been doing this for 30 years, guys. We've got to recognise that. We've got to understand that where we have done these strategies, we have seen success. It is going to take some time. It's not, don't get me wrong, it's not quick enough in my view. I don't want to see capital gains come in. I don't want to see these unrealised gains of your capital gains come in. But elections have consequences. And if we don't engage with them, if we don't understand what the left have been doing for 30 years, how they've been taking over our institutions, how they've been going after all of these different, you wouldn't think that the councils would have that much of an impact. Roads, rates and rubbish. But they actually do. In Cessnock, we saw a lot of success in New South Wales. It's in the Hunter Valley. They ran in that council election. They won half of the council spots and they won the popular vote for the mayor. So if you go there and you say, I want to speak to the mayor, it won't be some lefty, some guy that's doing woke stuff. It's a lovely guy there. He's a freedom warrior. He's totally on the same side with everything. He's against smart cities. He's against the COVID jabs. That's the success you can have when you focus on local, then state, then federal, and you snowball it. And so I do want to let you guys know that there is actually hope. There are parts of the country that have worked out this formula, and if you apply that, you can win. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Joel, you're just focusing on the minor parties. What's wrong with the Liberal Party? And it's a valid question. It's a really valid question. And By the way, I'm no fan of Susan Ley. I'm no fan of Malcolm Turnbull, these Liberal leaders. Not at all, yeah. Got one clap in the back, for those of you that can't listen online. Susan's speech that she did at the National Press Club started with Welcome to Country. You'll notice that I didn't start with that. I started with referencing the Anzac spirit, because that's who I respect in this country. And that's who I... And I salute, of course, God. Now, when I look at the Liberal Party, what's gone wrong is it's been wide-anted. There are people that have been at this for 20, 30 years. It wasn't enough to get just the Liberals. It wasn't enough for them to also get the Greens and to work on this. They also wanted to get Labor. They also wanted to get Liberal. They wide-anted the Liberals. They put people in there like Malcolm Turnbull, who's on record as saying, I don't care which party, I just want to be Prime Minister. That tells you that he's not in it to actually do something for his conservative values. He's in it to just be someone, to get that check, to have that, I don't know, what do you call it, Barclay? Just to stand up there and to actually get that respect internationally and be like, oh, I'm someone important. That's not what I'm about. That's not what you guys are about. We want someone that's going to actually serve the public and have that servant leadership that we saw in Jesus Christ himself. So the Liberal Party has been wide-anted. That's exactly what happened in this state with Senator Gerard Rennick. Not only did they end up rigging the vote against Senator Rennick, but the courts wouldn't even be the referee in it. They said, oh, it's not justiciable. Judges won't get involved in party matters. So we've got a bit of a problem here, guys. There are some states like South Australia where Senator Alex Antic is doing a great job. He can sack the Liberal Party. He can put people in there like us that are really good people. But there are other states like my state, New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, where they throw these people out. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, Joel, what should we do? Which party do we join? And I always say, look, it kind of depends on your state. But as a general recommendation, if you can join the Liberal Party and if you can get more people pre-selected like Alex Antic, like Gerard Rennick, you should do that. But you should also, if you don't get what you want, you should still volunteer for your minor parties, you know, your Rennicks, your One Nations and your Libertarians. You should still volunteer for them. You should still run for them. You should still donate to them. You can do both. People think it's a binary. You can do both. And participation in these things, it takes maybe 0.25% of your time in the year, less than 0.5% of your year's time. But the enormous difference that it makes, no one shows up to these Liberal Party meetings. No one shows up to them. That's why it was so easy to take it over. The Liberal Party used to be the guardians of democracy in this country. If you go and read the Menzies We Believe statement on the Menzies Institute website, they were for small government. They were for small, individual liberties. They were for all of these things, a fair go. But the party's been wide-anted. It's not what you see. And that's why in the back of your mind right now, you're wondering, is Joel bought and paid for by the Liberals? It's not. It's not. I'm not. But the problem is you've got to understand why things have changed. Under Howard, under other Liberal Prime Ministers, we didn't really have to worry about politics. My parents have been Liberal voters their whole life until COVID. But they saw what was happening with the party. They've seen how it was Malcolm Turnbull that passed same-sex marriage. It was the Liberals that passed a number of these expenditure bills that they're not the fiscally responsible ones. They've changed, guys. But they changed because we abdicated our responsibility. The men specifically, we have let this country down. We didn't understand how the cogs of society worked. To an extent, it's not our fault, but we've got to take some responsibility at some point. I happened to learn this stuff because I was interested in it, and that's why I give that information for free. What you freely receive, freely give. But at the same time, we didn't learn this stuff in school because they don't want you to learn it in school. Who writes the curriculum? The government, the state government. It's not in their favor if you know the rules. If you have knowledge is power, and that's why they don't teach you these things in school. And so that is exactly what Turning Point Australia is all about. We weren't born out of the universities, we were born out of COVID. We were born against censorship. And if there's one thing I would love to get out of this over my lifetime in this fight for Australia, which I will always do, is I want to empower you guys to take over your local councils, to take over your state governments, and take over your national government and win all these future referendums to come. And you don't have to win government. Look at the Greens. They now control the Senate federally because they control the balance of power in the Senate. Sure, they lost a few lower house seats, but the Senate, if you control that middle, if Liberal and Labor can't pass a bill without the Greens, that concept, that's called the balance of power. They hold the power. Anthony Albanese can't pass a housing bill. He can't pass an infrastructure bill. He can't pass anything without the Greens. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. Now, what I hope happens, and I won't get too nerdy on you guys, but what I hope happens is that those two come to an impasse. I hope that Labor and the Greens come to an impasse to the point that Anthony Albanese is forced to call an election. If that happens, and it's a double dissolution election, again, a little bit of a nerdy term, but search that term, double dissolution election, the whole Senate is up for grabs. If we do that, we get minimum 6 to 12 senators up in this country, maybe 13, 6 to 13 senators. That's the balance of power. So there are good things happening. I meet phenomenal people every day in this country, especially at conferences like these, which is why I love doing this. But I want to encourage you that there are pockets of this country that have worked out formulas. I'm meeting these people. I'm getting them to document these things, and I'm trying to make this information accessible to you guys so that you can get Australia back to that nostalgic Australia that I grew up in the early 2000s, but that you guys grew up in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. And I just want to salute all of the older Australians that are here that are turning up. Do not worry about the fact that the young kids are not here. They don't come to conferences. That's just not their thing. I'm a bit of an old soul. I know I'm 28, but I'm a bit of an old soul. However, there is something happening in Gen Z which I'm really excited about. They are seeing what's going on online. They're listening to my bishop, Bishop Murray. He's the one that was stabbed in the eye by that Muslim teenager. Now, some of you may not know who he is. Gen Z know who they are. Now, Gen Z is anyone that is 29 and younger in that sort of age group. Gen Z know exactly who they are, to the point that they call him just the bishop. That's how they know him, the TikTok bishop. That's what's happening in religion, but we're also seeing that happen in politics in places like the UK. Gen Z are picking Nigel Farage over every other party other than Labor in the UK. That's never happened. The Conservative Party over there, they've never had that. Something is going on. Young people are waking up. They're looking around. They're seeing the standard of living that their parents had and their grandparents had, and they're saying, something's wrong. And they're looking. They're looking. And because the left have taken over the cultural powers, you can need to search this concept, the long march through the institutions. I'm sure many people have heard it that are here. Because the left have taken over Hollywood, the universities, they train all the teachers, and they write the curriculum, they are the dominant culture. That's just the situation. They are the dominant culture. But mankind rebelled against God himself in the Bible. And the young people of today are rebelling against that very corrupt, dominant culture. And they are looking for answers. They're finding shows like my show. I've gotten 400 million views over the last 4 years. They're finding shows like the shows you've seen at this forum. They're finding religion again, which I never thought I'd see. But it's being spread. They're seeing the very bishop that I have. They're seeing the very politicians that I back. And like Bob Katter, there's been this really weird thing where Gen Z, they're fascinated with Bob Katter. They're fascinated with Gerard Rennick. They're fascinated with Pauline Hanson and Malcolm Roberts. It's like, what is going on? They didn't change. These people didn't change. They've still been the same. But there's like a new market's been created. And they're really connecting with them. And so I want to encourage you all. I know, and I'll openly admit this, coming out of COVID, seeing Australia's response was a very debilitating and depressing thing to see. But I see pockets of light in every country in every spot in this country. Everywhere I travel in this country, I see, and talk to Michael Gray Griffith about this. He's driven everywhere. And there are pockets of light all across this country, people coming up with brand new solutions. My focus is politics because we have a political problem. I'm trying to bring the tools that I see to you guys like that. And so stay in touch, find Turning Point Australia on any of your favourite social media, and please do tune in and every time we have an election. I've got plans for Queensland. I'm very much looking forward to chatting to you guys about that. But if there's one verse I want to leave with you guys to encourage you, it's this one from G.K. Chesterton. The one perfectly divine thing, the one glimpse of God's paradise given on earth, is to fight a losing battle and to not lose it. I've seen this time and time again, both at a personal level, on a historical level, but also on a national level. And I pray that you all see that in your own lives one day as well. Thank you.